This tutorial explains the different options for using weighted and unweighted grades. There are three different methods for weighting grades. There are different options for all three, so you can choose the combination of weighting which is correct for your classes. The first is categories, where you can define subsets of assignments such as homework, quizzes, tests, and participation worth a certain percentage of the overall grade for the class. The next is grading periods, where you can define how each grading period, such as quarter 1, quarter 2, and a final exam, calculate to determine the semester grade. Finally, there are assignments. Each assignment can have a different weight, so you can define how each assignment can affect the overall grade. Let's start with categories. Weighting by category is where you weight different categories of assignments to be worth different amounts for the overall grade. For example, you can define tests and quizzes to be worth 50%, homework 40%, and participation is 10%. If you have 2 tests or quizzes, they will be worth 50% of the grade. Likewise, for 3 homework assignments, that'll be worth 40%. If you add more tests and quizzes, or more homework assignments, or both, no matter how many you add, they will never be worth more than the defined category weighting. To set up category weighting, in your gradebook, go to the Setup Grading screen. Then go to the Category column. Select Weighted, and you could define up to 12 categories and their associated weight toward the overall grading period grade. Note that the total does not have to equal 100. You can also choose Unweighted to have categories strictly for organization but with no weights, and None to not use categories at all. Now let's take a look at weighting by grading period. There are 2 methods to weight by grading period, the first of which is weighted average. Let's say your quarter 1 grade is determined by the categories as seen earlier. The same for quarter 2. And you have a final exam. Using the weighted average method of weighting by grading period, you can define that quarter 1 is worth 40% of the semester grade, quarter 2 as well 40%, and the final exam to be worth 20% of the semester grade. Returning to the Setup Grading screen, you can define your cumulative weighting in the column on the right. Select Weighted Average Precise. Here you can define the weight of each grading period. For a grading period to have no impact on the cumulative grade, simply set the weight to 0. Once again, they do not have to sum to 100. Weighted average by grade uses letter grades instead of numbers to average grades. It's rarely used. See the help guide for further information. Another option to weight by grading period is the unweighted sum approach. In this case, if you have the same categories for quarter 1 and quarter 2, you may have different point values for each term. For example, in quarter 1, you may have 150 points worth of assignments in the test and quizzes categories, whereas in quarter 2, you have 200 points worth of assignments. The worth of assignments is determined by the number of assignments and the value of each. To determine the semester grade, it will take the sum of points from each quarter. In this case, 150 points worth of assignments in quarter 1 and 200 in quarter 2, to determine that there's 350 points worth of assignments for the overall semester. The same for homework and participation. The semester grade will be based on these grades and category weights for the semester. Note that this is not a straight average. It's mathematically correct, but sometimes surprising to students and parents who are expecting an average grade. Returning to the Setup Grading screen, in order to apply the unweighted sum approach, in the cumulative column, select Unweighted Sum. Note there are no weights defined to each term. It's simply based on the sum of assignments in each category. Also note that if you have 2 quarters summing to a semester, you'll need to use the unweighted sum approach in both quarters in order for the calculations to be correct. Let's take a look at weighting by assignments. in this case equal weighting. Let's say for all the assignments in the term, you're using weighted categories. If you have 6 assignments in the test and quizzes category, note that they will all be equally weighted toward the category grade. Likewise for homework. Another option is weighting by assignments using unequal weighting. In this case, assuming the same category weights, you may have one test worth 50 points, another worth 25 points, another worth 15, and another worth 10. They're all within the test and quizzes category, but they each have unequal weighting toward the category grade. Likewise for homework, several assignments, each worth a different percent toward the homework grade. To set up assignment weighting, go to the Grades Assignment screen, where you'll enter assignments as well as student grades. For each assignment entered, if you're using categories, you'll see the different category options here. The worth field may be defined as either points or grades, depending on your settings. To keep all assignments weighted equally, for any assignment, always enter the same number in this field, commonly 1. To weight assignments unequally, you can enter a different number in this field, based on how much you would like that assignment to impact the category grade. To reiterate, you can use a combination of weighting options for your classes as appropriate. For example, you may not use categories, but use unequal assignment weighting. Or you may use categories and use unweighted sum as your grading period approach. Simply customize the weighting methods in Jupyter in order to meet your needs.